Congressman Chris Stewart is on the phone. I can't believe it. Chris? Chris?
Hey, Glenn, how are you?
Well, I've been better.
Well, I guess a lot of people have. But,
I will tell you, you have some nerve calling, and I appreciate that. We were just saying off the air that we promised you, as your friend, that we would come to Washington to pull you out of Washington before you lost your soul entirely. And I'm not kidding you, Chris. We were talking about. We're
gassing up the car.
We're gassing up the car. We're talking about firing up the jet and flying there to pull you out of that cesspool because we're afraid you're losing your way.
I'm glad that I would make your list of those you want to save. I'm complimented by that.
You're definitely on that list. But, Chris, we're hearing disturbing news that you plan to vote
for John Boehner.
For Boehner.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so is it him opposing the IRS targeting of conservative groups, him opposing that? Is that what got you to say, I have to be on board with him?
Glenn, there's a couple things. Reason why I'm supporting the speaker.
Okay, hang on just a second. I'm not done with my list yet. Is it the opposing of the Massey Amendment? Is it the delaying of the Obamacare individual mandate that he was against? Was it the raising of the debt limit? Was it the keeping the IRS out of our health care? Was it him opposing the REINS Act? Was it him opposing or supporting the Cromnibus? Was it his opposing the audit of the Fed? Or was it him opposing the EPA's overreach on water? Because I can't get past any of those, Chris. Any of those I can't get past. Now, you tell me what sold you on him.
Glenn, there's many of the things that you just said that John Boehner opposes is not true. He hasn't opposed many of those things. He hasn't, and that's just simply the truth. He hasn't opposed the REINS Act, for example. He hasn't opposed any reforms on Obamacare, for example. There are other things that you've suggested or that other people have suggested that John Boehner has opposed, and it's just simply not true. But I think in the time we have here, we can't go back and review the last 2 or 4 or 6 years of votes you may or may not agree with him on. But the bottom line is this. Number one is I think we should be celebrating today, and it's discouraging to me that instead this has become such a divisive day because we had a great election in November. And we've got a united Congress and a united Senate now. For the first time, we've got a united front where we can oppose President Obama.
You're right. We have a united Congress, and they're giving the green light to the president on amnesty. They're giving the green light on the Cromnibus.
No,
that's $1 trillion, Chris. $1 trillion.
Glenn, we are not giving the green light to the president on amnesty.
He has already backed off doing anything about it.
Glenn, listen, you've got to at least.
So every news report is wrong, Chris?
So here's the thing, Chris. Here's the thing, Chris.
When we have the united
Congress, when we have the united Congress, are you going to stand up and say, "Stop targeting the IRS"? The IRS stop targeting people. Is John Boehner going to say free market solutions to healthcare?
I think John Boehner has done that, Glenn. Just like John Boehner has not stopped any efforts to target the IRS, exactly the opposite. He has done many of the things that you've suggested. He's tried to do many of those things, but you got to recognize.
So who is it? Who is it here, Chris? Who is it that's crafting these conspiracies?
Glenn, once again, I have never suggested there's a conspiracy. I have never said that there's a group that's too radical. Only thing I've said is that there can be differences of opinions. Well, I know, but I'm not John Boehner.
No, I understand that. I understand that. Chris. You find me in a brothel, and I'm friends with all the prostitutes, and I'm friends with the madam, and I start telling you about how the city improvements, that this brothel is helping with the city improvements. Chris, I'm not sleeping with the prostitutes. I'm just here setting up office in the brothel. Do you have a problem with me, Chris?
Well, it depends, Glenn. You know that. How attractive are the young ladies in the brothel, right?
You told us, Chris, you told us to come down on you like a bag of bricks if we ever felt you were losing your soul. This is a bag of bricks time. We think you're losing your soul.
friends can say those kind of things to each other. We get that.
Yes.
And you and I have been friends for many more years than I've been in politics. Heck, I'm a new guy, Glenn. I've been in this for a couple years now, right? But I do think that there are times when you and I agree that you've indicated that I haven't agreed with you. I think you've indicated that I've said or implied things that I certainly haven't, and I never have. And I think that you and I agree on far more than we disagree. And I think you're using this one vote as some kind of a type of touchstone, as if it indicates disagreement on everything else when we don't.
No. It is the game. It is the game, Chris. It's the game. You're playing the game. Stop playing the game. Tell me where well, you can't, because he doesn't need a pivot point. John Boehner is fine with you. So he doesn't need a pivot point.
You don't think we could do better, Chris? You don't think we could do better than John Boehner?
Well, listen, gentlemen, who do you suppose that we would support you? Because
Louis Gohmert.
Louis Gohmert would be great.
Do you know how many votes I think Louis will get?
Well, yeah, because people like you won't vote for him.
Right.
No, it's because as much as I like Louis, he's not the person to lead the House right now.
Why? So John Boehner is.
Well, but look, Louis not the person to lead the House right now.
Why?
But John Boehner is. I would rather have Louis Gohmert than John Boehner.
Okay, we can agree to disagree on that.
So what?
Because you know why? Because you want to play the game, and you know that the game has to be played in Washington, and Louis won't play the game. The American people, here's what you're missing, Chris. The American people are done with the game. They're done. They're done. And you can play this all you want and hope to get to 2016. You're going to lose in 2016 if you continue to play the game. They're done. They would rather have somebody they disagree with in office that is not playing the game. I disagree with that person.
I disagree with you. I think that by 2016, when the American people see what the Republicans have been trying to do for the last 2 years, when we now have allies in the Senate who will help us to do those things in the next 2 years, when we're going to be able to move forward on the REINS Act, on reforming Obamacare, or eliminating Obamacare.
Okay, well, when you get all those things done,
on controlling our debt,
you get all those things done, you call me up, and then you come down on me like a bag of bricks, and I will apologize. I don't believe you. I don't believe any of you in Washington.
Because there's no evidence.
There's no evidence. You've never done it, Chris. It's never happened. It's
how
not
many
happened.
How many bills did the Republican House pass in the last session that sat on Harry
How
Reid's
many
desk?
times have you guys had the opportunity to have the balls to stand up and you don't have it in your underpants?
396 bills we passed in the House that sat on Harry Reid's desk.
So following your logic here, Chris.
Now we've got a Republican Senate who can help us move 396.
And to where? Where would they move them? Where would they move them, Chris?
Right.
They're going to move them to President Obama's desk. He's going to veto them all, and then you're going to tell us, well, we now have to wait until we have the presidency.
But that's in some cases that's a reality.
It's always the reality.
It's always the reality, and it's always, and you know, you're moving it to the Senate run by Mitch McConnell. You're running it to the You're running it to the Senate run by Mitch McConnell. You're running it to the Senate. You're running it to the Senate. You have a House run by John Boehner, and you're going to run all these great bills to the Senate run by Mitch McConnell, who is trying to take people like Mike Lee out at the knees. And I don't even want to ask you how you feel about Mike Lee.
Did Mike Lee vote for Mitch McConnell as leader, as the Senate leader?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Good question. I don't know.
He did.
It's a terrible vote.
I will disagree with Mike Lee on that vote.
To be fair to Chris, he did. He said he had to leave, and we kept him over several minutes.
Is Mike Lee an enemy to the American people now?
Well, no, he never said you were an enemy to the American people.
No, but there are. We never say you're an enemy to the American people.
You're a good guy, Chris.
Right.
I wonder
Chris,
why you don't think we can do better. And I know you've been fair here. You called in and you stayed over by 5 minutes. We do appreciate that.
I don't see your point. I see your point. I disagree with it. But we're friends, Chris, and we always will be friends. I'm worried about you as your friend. We honestly were having the conversation. I think it's about time to get in the car and go get our friend and take him away before he loses his soul.
Jump in your jet and come up here, and we'll continue the conversation.
No, I don't think so.
Come on.
No, I don't think
Come
so.
on.
No, because you still think you're going to win.